She had it all, a business, a husband, and a happy life. And then the unthinkable. She suffered a brain aneurysm. She is Maria Ross from Red Slice, and she's here to share her story of success, survival, and the 7 business lessons she learned from her brain aneurysm. I'm Sheila Butler. Let's kick this thing off. Hi, everyone. This is Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. Thank you so much for joining me today. And on today's episode, we have Maria Ross from Red Slice. I can't wait to share her story with you. I'm not going to dive deep into it, but she's an entrepreneur, coach, had a lot of things really impacting her going well in her life. And then something happened that changed everything about her, the way she worked in her life in general. So welcome, Maria.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining me. I certainly appreciate it, taking time out of your day. But let's start with the very first question that I usually ask everyone, which is tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
So, as you mentioned, I'm creator and chief brand strategist of Red Slice, which is at red-slice.com. And I am a brand strategist for solopreneurs, small to mid-sized businesses, and I essentially help people attract new clients, stand out from the crowd, and grow their business. So I really like to say that I help people tell their story and help them position themselves really uniquely in the market. So I've been doing that on my own for probably over 4 years, almost 5 years now. And before that, I was a marketing director in Silicon Valley. I worked for Discovery Networks at one point, as well as in advertising. So my whole career has been marketing, communications, getting people on the same page, helping them align. And I just really love working on my own and being able to work with all kinds of people in all kinds of industries. It's been fabulous.
I love that. So you, in 2008, so you've been very successful. But in 2008, something happened in your life that kind of changed everything about that. So let's talk about that for just a second, and then we'll relate that to where you are today and the impact that it's had on you and the changes that you've made.
Absolutely. Well, I started my business in January of 2008, and then in August of that year, I suffered an unexpected brain aneurysm and nearly died. So that obviously stopped everything dead in its tracks. And what happened, kind of the high level, is that for about 6 weeks I was in the hospital, in ICU, neurosurgery, and then also inpatient rehab. And also that entire time I was in the hospital, I also couldn't see because I had had some damage. The initial hemorrhage caused a damage in my retinas. So I had quite a few surgical procedures while I was in the hospital to obviously save my life and stop the bleeding. And then I had some subsequent eye surgeries, and then began my long road to recovery of just sort of getting back into my life again. And not only that, but then eventually getting back into my business. So I learned a lot of lessons along the way and recently wrote a book called Rebooting My Brain, which is a chronicle of that humorous and heartfelt
Exactly.
journey.
Great book, by the way.
Oh,
and we'll link that up in the show notes as well. But
perfect.
So you started your business in January, and then you're pretty busy. And from reading your book, you were just a busy woman in general. You were
Yes.
you married later in life. You were very well connected as far as you're a networker, you're an entrepreneur, you're a go-getter spirit, and you also did did theater work as well.
Yes. So, as if I didn't have enough on my plate, I'm a type A person and I tend to take on a lot. So I always have lived a life where I have a lot going on and was always able to balance that pretty well. I was an executive, I was a freelance writer, obviously, married, family, all of that. And then, in my spare time, what little spare time I had, I'm also an actress. So I've done community theater and independent theater. And it was actually at a theater audition when I had moved to Seattle that I got the first symptoms of my brain aneurysm, which at the time we just chalked up to all the stress of the move. We had just moved from the Bay Area up to Seattle. We're now back in the Bay Area again. But, I had high blood pressure. And when I went to the doctor, they just said, he just said, well, maybe it's all the stress going on in your life. Like, let's try to deal with that, and let's monitor things for a month and see how they go. And, through that month, even though I was still working on building my business and dealing with being in a new city and new friends and new routine and all that kind of stuff, I was having these occasional really bad migraines causing nausea and, dizziness and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously in August just collapsed in my house. But by the grace of God, my husband decided to come home from work early that day and work from home because I wasn't feeling well, which he
Wow.
hardly ever does. So yeah,
Everything
it was
happens
crazy.
for a reason, right?
Exactly. So, this really forced me to sort of jump off the merry-go-round and realize that the world doesn't end when you do that. People adapt to crisis. They adapt to you needing to take a break, whether it's a forced break or not. And I think sometimes we forget that, especially as women. We're so busy. We're building our businesses. We're managing our families. We're trying to juggle everything. And we don't proactively take the time to maybe slow down the music until life makes us slow down the music. So I was very fortunate that I was able to get back into things again.
So how did your business survive? So how long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital about 6 weeks, and then was in recovery for many months after that. But I started getting back into full-time work. It seemed like forever at the time, but it was really only 7 months after I had almost died.
Wow.
So the lucky thing was I was self-employed. So I had the blessing of being able to take on work at my own pace. And so I took on some part-time projects at first and just really sort of eased myself into it. But I would say, recovery really took about a year or two. And, even every day I deal with, even now, 4 years later, I deal with challenges and little things that I have to adjust to. But, people ask that, how long did it take you to recover? It's like, well,
still recovering.
Really getting back on my feet, probably about a year. And then really just, now where I am and just people look at me and don't even know I had a brain injury. So
now, did you just, as far as your business was concerned, I know by reading your book that you had your husband and your family and they did a lot to help kind of notify all of your clients and what was going on. And then I'm guessing you probably just put a lot of that on hold as you had to. And then once you were able to, you started picking up some projects and then slowly get it. Well, not as slowly, I think, as what your therapist told you should
probably.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky that I have a service-based business, so my business is me. And so if, I obviously was in the middle of a project when this hit, and I was working with Microsoft, so I was working with a larger company at the time. And, they worked around it. And luckily, I had no other major clients going on at that time because that was taking up pretty much all of my hours. But yeah, my husband just got on email. He'd never really been involved with my work before, but he was able to just notify people, address some things as emails were coming in. I missed a conference call the day after my aneurysm. I think the potential client was a little narked that I didn't show up until they found out, well, my excuse was I had a brain aneurysm. So.
Yeah, she's a little busy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, what it was just the blog went stagnant. The networking stopped. All of that, but again, when it is just you, the pro of that is when you're ready to jump back into things, you can sort of crank that engine pretty quickly. And I start.
And how difficult was that? Because just building a network and following to begin with is tough. But I'm guessing that you had started one already, and then you were gone for a period of time. So was it almost like starting back over from ground zero as far as that networking was concerned?
A little bit. I mean, luckily I'd built a business that was very much referral oriented. And so I had my existing network that I had started building the business with. But when I moved to Seattle, I lucked into this whole entrepreneurial community and solopreneur, micro business, whatever you want to call it, people like us that work for themselves. And I had started making really good friends within that community. They weren't just business contacts. And I think that really helped that, they were with me through the personal stuff as well. So when I was ready to jump back into things, it was sort of a, send out the announcement, Maria's back at it. And, what can you guys do for me? You can start talking me up. You can start letting people know I'm working again. And so that was really helpful. I think if you just build a network where all you care about are making connections and passing business cards and leads, that does make it a little harder. So, I was very lucky, like I said, that a lot of my network had started to become friends of mine as well.
Such a great point. And I think and we talk about this a lot on the show, is that networking is more than just networking. It truly should be building friendships, because business is done on a friendship basis. You deal with people that you like.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so building those networks, it was vital to you, and you built them the right way on the front end, which helped you on the back end.
I think that's, one of the most important lessons I learned both personally and professionally through this was that you have to count on your tribe. And that means from a business perspective, don't just build the relationships when you need them. You should be cultivating that tribe before you actually need something from them. You should be giving what you can. And I follow the networking adage of I don't necessarily network with people I don't want to spend time with. And so, when people kind of roll their eyes about networking, well, it's just about going to a group. And if you find one person you connect with, then it's worth it. But you don't have to, it's not a quantity game, it's a quality game. So don't network with a person just because they can influence your business. You should network with them if you enjoy spending time with them.
Exactly. And I think that if you network for the right reasons, you get so much more out of that person that you're networking with, versus it's almost like someone knows when you're just networking for number reasons or for business reasons. But if you're trying to truly build a connection and relationship, I think people can tell a difference.
Yeah, I mean, and I've, not that I keep these people away, but there's certain people I've met that I know could really help my business. But, I don't necessarily enjoy spending time with them, or their brand doesn't align with my brand, and I'm a brand strategist. So, it's not that I would not do anything for them if they asked, but it's about where are you going to spend your time and resources, which is another lesson I learned both in business and life, was really about focusing your efforts.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because you also did a little paper on the 7 lessons you learned after your freak aneurysm and how it's changed the way you work and that you run your business. So can we touch on those?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the first big one is really focus. And ironically, we were talking about this earlier, that when I was recovering, I started realizing that a lot of the lessons that would help me through my recovery were actually things I was telling my branding clients about their brand, which is like, what does branding have to do with brain aneurysm? But surprisingly, and one of the things is focus. And, with my branding clients, I tell them they can't boil the ocean. They can't be all things to all people. They have to focus on who their ideal customers are. Where's their position in the market? And from a personal perspective, it's about focusing on what's important, focusing on what's going to get you to that next step or accomplish that next goal. I can't multitask the way that I used to because of my brain injury. Sort of my filter of information is a little bit impaired.
Right.
And so that's probably a good thing that I can't multitask the way I used to, and that I'm forced to concentrate on the present, on the moment, on the 3 or 5 most important things I need to do that day.
Right.
So, whether you have a brain injury or not, that's probably really good advice.
Yeah, the more I hear it now is that, everybody's like, oh, I'm the best multitasker. But the research really shows that you're really not that great at it. You're okay at several things, but you're not being great at not one thing.
Right, right. And my husband jokes that because I was a very, very good multitasker before, and he jokes I'm like mere mortal now. So
you're just mere mortal now.
So, but for me, I can tell the difference. And so therefore the delta is apparent to me. And so I have to work differently. I can only accept so many clients at one time, but that means I do a really, really focused, fantastic job for each of those clients. And so I really have to look at my schedule for the week, for example, and I can't commit to everything. I can only commit to maybe 2 networking events in a given week because I get really fatigued as well.
Oh, so very interesting.
I have to just do things a little bit differently than I did before.
And that probably has helped you pick clients that you most want to work with, which then in turn makes you a happier person, probably makes your business more profitable. I mean, it's probably a big cycle, I'm guessing.
It is. And it's that leap you have to make where you hear this, you need to say no to the wrong clients. This is what I tell my branding clients, because your clients represent you. And if you're saying yes to all the wrong projects, you can't say yes to all the right projects because your time's going to be sucked up. So, and it's hard to accept that maybe your business will do better if you turn business away. But it actually is, because the business you accept says something about you. And it's an advertisement for other people that are not yet your clients or your customers.
Yes,
So
I love
you have
that.
to be very selective. And it's nice to be able to just, if I get a call from a CEO and they're going to be really high maintenance and I know they're going to drain my energy and raise my blood pressure, which I have to keep,
Sure.
even, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not able to help you, but here's 3 other people who can.
That's wonderful and
Yeah.
important. And I think, whether, like you said, whether you've had a brain aneurysm or not, the point is that you really should be working with people that really are your ideal client, because it's going to pave the road for everything else that you do.
Right. And if, like I said, if you say yes to that wrong client and then someone else who's the right client sees that, they're going to go, oh, she works with those type of people. She must not be for me.
Great point.
So it's an advertising. It's, your clients are advertising for you.
Great point. Great point.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got focus was number one.
Yes. And we talked about sort of counting on your tribe.
Right.
That was one of my other ones. The other one is really to be authentic. I really had to learn that after my brain injury, there was a new me, and I had to learn how to do things differently. And when I stopped fighting, trying to get back to the old baseline and trying to embrace what my strengths were now, my recovery soared, because I was sort of my own worst enemy for a while. I was trying to get back to the old way of doing things instead of going, well, there's a new way. Let's figure out a new way around this obstacle. And it's the same advice I give to people with their business, is that you've got to be authentic with your business. You've got to play to your strengths, not the business or the brand persona that you think you want to have, or you think that's going to be more profitable for you. If you can't authentically deliver that, then it's a no-win situation. You're just going to keep getting in your own way. So I really had to learn how to accept the new me. And, whatever flaws that meant, whatever, cognitive or psychological or emotional changes that meant, as soon as I stopped fighting it, it got a lot easier. And I was able to do more because of it.
That's such a great point. And it is so true that it can be applicable to all of us. Just be you. Stop trying to be someone else. Just be authentic to who you are.
Right.
And then it makes things so much easier. And we put ourselves in a situation that, like, we put so much stress, I think, sometimes on ourselves, trying to be something that we're not, that once we let go of that, it's like you said, it's just a relief. And for you, it enhanced your recovery.
Right. I mean, there's this whole rant I go on in the book, which Oprah might kill me if she ever reads it someday. But I kind of lashed out against this whole live your best life movement, because I felt like just the name of it, live your best life, it implied a competition. It implied you're less than how you are. And so, we're all trying to be these super women. I have to have my own business and a family of 5 kids, and I have to have a web TV show and a radio show. And, if I'm not in the press, and, people put so much pressure on themselves, and it's like, just play to your strengths. It's not about being stagnant. Like, goals are good and we should have goals, but if you're always racing to be something else, you're never going to appreciate what you have and be able to play to the strengths you have right now.
And I'm guessing from a brand strategist point of view, it's probably really, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing it's more challenging to help a brand develop their authentic voice and brand if they are always trying to be something that they're not.
Absolutely. I call it, they slap a coat of brand paint over their business, because I want to be Apple because Apple is successful, but you're not. Maybe you're not cutting edge and sleek and innovative, and that's okay. Maybe you have other strengths. Maybe your strengths are about being cautious and careful and wise, whatever it is. So I really work a lot with clients on trying to figure out what they authentically bring to the table and building a brand around that, rather than trying to turn them into something that they're not.
I love that. Okay, so we've got focus, go with your tribe, be authentic. I think we've talked about another one.
Practice patience would probably be my big one, which is, not a real big word in my book.
Ooh, I need that one.
I'm still not great at it. Let's not, I don't want people to think I've become this like Zen master about everything. But one of the big things with my recovery was that I really, and this happens with brain injury patients, they actually have a really bad sense of self-appraisal of what they're able to do and also what they're not able to do. So I thought, sitting in the hospital blind, stitches in my head, my hair shaved. I still thought my husband and I were going to Spain on our holiday the next week. I hadn't even been released from the hospital yet. And I thought, well, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to get out of this bed and I'm going to get back into my life right away. And, I had to learn, no, it's not a light switch. Like, you have to just figure out what your goals are and make progress towards those goals. And I'd always thought patience meant stagnation. It meant you were lazy, or you weren't doing what you needed to do, or you weren't a go-getter. But patience is really just, if that's my goal for this week and I accomplish that, I'm good. Like, I need to just sit with that and be okay. And then next week I'll make further progress and further progress. And so it's about small steps to the goal rather than I need to have everything right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. It's funny because I was telling you before we started recording that I previously owned an offline business, and we grew the business from 0 to over $7 million in a 6-year period. So we were a really successful business. Mm-hmm. And then I sold that business and then started something on my own. And when things don't happen as quickly as I think they should, and many things are different in my life now. Now I'm a mother of 2 young children. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And I don't have all the time in the world to dedicate to starting a company. But I can only in my head see, I know I've done it before and I've done it this quickly and this is how you do it. It is so hard for me to be patient. I know. It's a tough one.
I know. Well, like I said, I think, and I've talked to a lot of rehab psychologists about this. And I think if you're type A, it's even worse. If, you're sort of like, oh, I want it all and I want it now.
Right.
And you think that if you don't get it in that time frame, something's wrong.
Yes.
And it's really just about, no, if if the trajectory is going up and you're accomplishing these smaller goals in the right direction, that's good.
Yes, I agree.
So yeah, that's a tough one I still struggle with, I have to admit. So, and for business, it's like, like you said, it's sometimes I get clients that are like, I want to work with you on my brand strategy. And then the very next week, I want to have this like worldwide known brand. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Can you do that for me? Exactly.
Yeah. If I could do that for you, I would. But, it takes time. It takes time for progress to be made, for people to know who you are, to know, like, and trust you, for your name to get out. And you just got to be patient with that. Like I said, as long as things are moving in the right direction.
Wow. That's good. I love that. That's a great tip. I'm going to work on that one.
Yeah. You and me both.
Well, now, okay. So have we covered them all?
No. Well, actually, we talked a little bit about this one with the focus. It's kind of the flip of that, the learning to say no. So we did kind of cover that in terms of being able to say no to the wrong things so that you can say yes to the right things, and being okay with that. That sometimes, for me, as an example, like I mentioned, I get fatigued. And so I have to space my day very carefully. And sometimes that means I have to say no to things I really want to do. Like if I really want to do a volunteer project, or I really, really want to take on that other client. Sometimes I just got to go, if you do that, it's going to be worse for everything you're doing.
Exactly.
So you've got to learn to say no.
Yeah, I think it was Dan Miller I heard one time say that you can take on, you have only so much time on your calendar, and you need to know what that is. If you've got a family, you have to, everything has to fit in. And you can say yes to one more thing if you're willing to say no to something else. So what are you going to drop off of your list?
Yes.
And that makes it really hard when you go, well, I like all the things on my list. And he's like, nope, you have to choose to take something away. What is it?
Absolutely. And I've learned, since my injury, and I've been working on this for years, that you can say no gracefully. I think, again, as women, we're taught you just don't say no. And there's a very graceful way to say no. People won't be mad at you. Right. If you just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't make that event. You don't have to make up a story. You don't have to make excuses. Just say no and move on. And I think that that's something that I've learned to get past because, for me, it's realizing life is short because of what happened to me. And so
exactly,
I'm not going to spend all my time trying to placate someone that I need to say no to. I'm just going to say no professionally and kindly and see what else I can do for that person in the future.
An interesting thing, it almost seems to me like you were forced to narrow down your market. You were forced to, like, you had to really hone in on which customers you wanted to work with. Because, like, for me, finding that niche, like everybody's like, you need to niche down or up, whichever way you want to say. You want to really narrow down. It's hard, but you were almost forced to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably been beneficial for you. So what advice can you give somebody that really is too broad and needs to narrow down?
Right. Well, I think people get afraid by the word niche. I find that my clients think that's going to be so small. And it's not like you want to pick a niche of 5 people. You're not going to sustain a business with, a niche that's so small. But it's more about the focus. So there's a type of client or a type of person that you want to work with. And that's what I try to get people to focus on. I help them build ideal customer profiles. And I tell them it's ideal on purpose. It's not average. Because if you're targeting women between the ages of 25 and 65, that's a really broad range. Now, that doesn't mean people within that range can't come to you. It's just, where are you going to focus your time and energy in marketing to those people? So I try to get people to really think about a very specific person within each of their niches. What is her name? What is her age? Where does she live? What is her life like? And we all have that. We all have that, like, oh, it'd be a dream to work with this type of person. So I really encourage business owners to build that profile. And again, you can accept any business you want, as long as you're saying no where you need to. But it's about where you're going to focus your time and effort and your energy on trying to reach those people. So, again, you can't pick a niche that's so small it can't sustain your business. But, as an example, one of my segments are solopreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So people that work for themselves. And that's a wide net. I mean, I can do any industry, but I have a specific type of person that I'm trying to reach. And I have that profile fleshed out. And if a solopreneur comes to me that doesn't quite fit that profile, unless I have no other work on my plate, I will accept it. But, I'm talking to those people. And I really make sure that all my marketing efforts, my blog, my content, how I speak, the tone that I write with, all of that is geared towards attracting that person.
I love that.
And that's what we mean about focus and niche. It's really narrowing down, because you can't boil that ocean.
Gotcha. I love that. Can't boil the ocean.
No, you can't. People try, but you just can't.
Now, listen, I think you have some training that you're going to start doing a training course or something. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So November 15th, I am launching a self-study course. It's basically people's opportunity to have me in their pocket.
Love that.
Rather than if they can't afford some of my consulting packages. And it's called the Indie Brand Bootcamp. And it's a series of 7 modules where I basically walk people through how to build their brand strategy. So we talk about effective messaging and copywriting. We talk about target markets and target customers. We talk about mission and vision. We talk about all of that. And so by the end, with an exercise packet that you get with it, hopefully the user will have thought through what they need, the questions they need to think through to build their brand strategy effectively and more effectively go to market. So they're not,
I love that.
The big effect is they won't waste time, money, or energy on doing the wrong things.
Absolutely.
They'll be more focused on the right things. So I'm really excited about that.
And there's no point in reinventing the wheel. It's out there. You just need, pay for the module, pay for the training, whatever, because someone before you's done it. It just makes it so much easier.
Right. I was getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people who follow me on social media that they love my messages and my what I have to say, but they're like, oh, just right now I can't really afford your consulting. And I thought, why don't I package this up into something that people can do on their own time, self-guided, stress-free, and get something usable out of that. And then I have bonus content in it about how to pitch the media, how to work with consultants, all kinds of good stuff.
Oh, that's terrific. And we will link that up in the show notes as well.
Thank you. That would be great. I'm really excited about it.
Hey, listen, Maria, if someone wanted to connect with you, where would you want to send them?
I think my main site is probably best. It's red-slice.com.
Okay.
And I have a blog there where I offer a lot of free content to business owners, both inspirational and practical in nature. I like to do a mix of both. And then if they're interested specifically in the brain injury book, which is really great if they've got anyone in their life that's suffered from stroke or brain aneurysm or a concussion, they can go straight to the book website, which is rebootingmybrain.com.
Okay.
So and both my branding book and that book are available on Amazon.
And we will link those up as well.
Great.
I so appreciate you sharing your story from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective, because it's brain injury there's a lot of unknown things out there. It's scary. People fear it because they don't know enough about it.
Right.
And to see your what we see from this point of view, it looks like a full recovery. And I'm sure if you have things that you're still working on daily, but I
Right.
love that you've been able to share your story. And if we're able to inspire one person to see that, sometimes life sucks and things happen,
Yep.
but you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going. And you just, like you said, you had to figure out who the new you was, and you weren't trying to be somebody else. You had to appreciate that, and it's, basically changed your life.
Absolutely. And, I wrote the book. It is about informing and educating and inspiring about brain injury, but I also wrote it so it was applicable for anyone who's gotten knocked out of their life by crisis.
Absolutely.
Because that crisis could be anything. It could be a divorce. It could be a death. It could be an illness. And so what do you do when life knocks you off? How do you get back on the ride again?
Absolutely. I've read the book. It's a great read. We'll link it up. I recommend it to anyone, even if you, like you said, if you don't have someone in your family or close to you that's had that. It just shows you, like for me, I sort of had a bad event a couple of years ago with my business. And, I kind of I don't know how to get into that, forced to sell a business that I didn't want to.
Right.
And it changed my life. It was terrible. Now, maybe not as tragic as what you've gone through, but it's all relative, right?
It's still a crisis, right? It's still something that knocks you off your feet.
Absolutely.
And so, what do you do? How do you deal with that when sort of you have to reboot, which is why I called it Rebooting My Brain.
And I don't know how you feel about it, but I've become a better person because of it. So
absolutely. I think that, if you can find the gift in adversity, and I know I'm very fortunate. There's a lot of people that have had brain injuries that are not as fortunate as I am with my recovery. But, I hear from them, and even they see their injury as a gift, or they see, with the lessons that it's taught them. I think crisis can teach us a lot about who we are.
Very inspiring. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll link everything up. And again, I can't wait to learn more about your story as we go along, and let's stay connected.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Successful Women Talk. Listen, a lot of people ask me, Sheila, how did you build a business from 0 customers in revenue to thousands of customers and multi-7 figures within a few short years? Here's the secret sauce. We had great products, excellent customer service, and we leveraged, this is key, we leveraged our systems and processes. If you want to learn more about this or how to reclaim your time, join me over at www.successfulwomentalk.com, and I'll show you how to get the life, business, and customers you want. Thanks so much.